Everybody, I'm Suzanne, and today's video I'm going to paint a downy woodpecker, and know that I'm actually using acrylic paint. I know you're not used to seeing me work in acrylics, but because I have this project, and I've done a couple videos already on some of the cabinet doors I'm doing for a kitchen job. They're having me paint wildlife on all their kitchen doors. So I wasn't going to go to Kentucky, so they brought the cabinet doors to me. So this is done on wooden. It's so the substrate happens to be a wooden panel. I guess it's a cabinet door, and it's got the base coat of in this case it's kind of a light blue paint because it's the upper cabinets, and I am using acrylic paint. So you know, I am going to take you start to finish on this little downy woodpecker, and it's all in real time. So you can see that it doesn't, you know, if you execute properly, you can go ahead and knock something like this out pretty quickly in acrylic paint. So sit back or paint along if you want to, and let's go ahead and jump into this little downy woodpecker. So I'm starting off with just a gray acrylic paint and kind of sketching out where I want this little downy woodpecker to go. So I kind of use a color that's kind of non-committal, you know, just gray, so I can kind of trace out the shape of this bird. Since I'm painting on top of the acrylic tree, it's supposed to be a dogwood that I've painted onto this substrate. I wanted to go ahead and just kind of sketch this on. Now, you know, I'm kind of looking where the black goes, where the white goes, and just being very abstract with my placement. that I have a nice kind of shape for my little downy woodpecker, I'm still going in with gray. I'm not using white yet because I want to put my lower or darker values down first and then kind of build up. And since this is acrylic paint, it's going to dry very, very quickly, and it allows me to stack or to layer paints nicely. So I'm just kind of getting those shapes still in, and I do look at things very abstractly at first, just looking for, any kind of shape that is recognizable to me. I don't identify everything as back of bird, head, beak. I generally just kind of look at things very abstractly as shapes or blocks of color. So now I'm using a much smaller brush, just a little tiny pointed round, and I am actually layering the white color. So you can appreciate the gray now that's underneath it, because you can see that, these little downy woodpeckers kind of have a hairy look, and they're very similar to a woodpecker called a hairy woodpecker too. So, you've got that, just that light hair kind of poking up there, and now you can see it. So I can actually get the shape of this bird in, and using the white lighter values, I can start to create the detail on this bird. back to the black in this wing, and you'll see that I'll actually morph a little bit. I'll actually bring out the chest of this bird a little bit more. But I'm using a combination of a King's Blue and raw umber over this part of the wing because the light seems to be catching it here. And it may be hard to see in this video, but it is a slightly lighter value, and it's just, you know, you can kind of get the feeling of the form of the back of this bird's wing. And so I'm going to go ahead and highlight on top of that. And since I have a very short working time, you know, I have to work when it's wet. So I just laid that color down, and now I'm adding the lighter highlights on top. Again, folks, remember, acrylic paint does dry really quickly. So because of that, I have to work quickly. This bird will take me, since you're watching this in real time, about 45 minutes to paint. And so much of that is my projection of time frame, like knowing how quickly the paint is going to dry. I have to make sure that I get the light values on top of this wet paint so I can have a little blend, etc. That's the only tricky part of this. Otherwise, you know, if you're following along and painting with me through this video, you just do what you see me doing, and you'll because this is real time, so it doesn't really take that much explanation. But remember, folks, if you have any questions, just leave it in the comments section, and I'll be glad to answer them for you. I know this is just kind of this is just part of a very large project that I'm working on, and so I didn't lay out the paints or the palette, but being that this is basically a black and white bird, it's almost self-evident what colors I'm using. But I'll talk about them here in a little bit. Now some of the markings, the field markings on the back of this bird. Now I am using that kind of bluey gray color and establishing the little shapes or the white spots that are on the back of this little woodpecker. And so I'm using a pointed round and just kind of popping it down. I said I would address the colors, and basically I'm using ivory black, raw umber, king's blue, well, something that's like similar to king's blue. It's just a light bluish gray, titanium white. I have alizarin crimson, or a dark or a cool red, I should say, and then I also have a hot cadmium red that I'm using as well. Interesting. That happens to be a woodpeckers. But anyway, on my clock back here, you can hear that bird in the background. But I'm just putting in these little markings on the wings, and I'm doing it in gray, but you'll see I'm going to layer it up here with some white paint as well. I didn't establish or tell you what the color of the tree is, simply because, I just wanted to make this about this little downy woodpecker. So again, the colors I'm using, I have ultramarine blue, ivory black, titanium white, a basic light gray, and you can mix your light gray yourself. I just happen to have it in a tube, and it's all Liquitex. I'm using Liquitex basics, acrylics. That's generally what I use for mural work and this sort of thing. So again, got any questions, just leave it in the comment section. I'll get to it. Now, I started with the cool red on the little back spot on this little male downy woodpecker, and now I'm actually adding cadmium red, so I need to add a hot red on top. And so you see the cool red kind of shining through here. I'll go ahead and bring this in hopefully a little closer so you can see it better. But you can see I'm just layering the paint. It's important that you allow the cool... sorry, it's moving. I have a little springy camera holder here, but that is, so you have to see the cool red shining through to appreciate the hot red on top. So I am just then I'm actually mixing a little cad red with some titanium white to add a little bit more depth into this little top knot on this little sweet bird. Now, here's a little bit of a close-up so you can actually appreciate what I'm doing here with the detail. I've got to kind of start stacking that paint in, but I've got to layer it a little bit. So I'm bringing the black out, and you can kind of appreciate the top knot. Now you know what I was talking about when I was layering, first the cool red versus the hot red on top. And, I've got to do the little highlights, and I'm just using that kind of a little bit of blue mixed in with that gray so you can appreciate, you can see it now. You can get that this little bird's coming into focus, and I'm trying to highlight the little areas of his head. So yes, you can tell he's a black bird, but yet you can appreciate that there is some highlighting here. The total, I guess, size of what I've painted here is probably about 6 inches. It's kind of close to, it's a little bigger than life size, but. And of course, I even want to make sure or get a point across and making the eyes look as real as I can. And that's the fun stuff, folks. It's what I enjoy the most. So just using a small pointed round, I'm just using the raw umber and ivory black. And then I'll go do that little light blue highlight over the top of the eye just to give it a little life. And boom, you've got an eye. I'm going to add a little bit more white, and then I think I ended up taking some of it off. I think I had a little too much. I get a little too excited sometimes with some of these colors. In my photo reference, the underthroat of this bird was a kind of a little off white, kind of a yellowy white. So I go back in and kind of restructure the throat area of this bird here in just a second. So you can see I've got yellow ochre, a little bit of a yellow ochre and umber and titanium white mixture here, just to create that kind of interesting shadow that I saw in my reference. And I'll let you see the other. I unfortunately can't post everything that I use for my stuff because I have permission to use it, but I don't have permission to show it because it's not my photograph. So I just kind of try to show you some of the painting and give that to you so you'll be able to see the finished piece to work from if you decide to paint along. But yeah, we're getting closer. So now I can stack a little bit of the lighter color on top here and still have that yellow shining through. Remember, that's important to be able to appreciate the depth. That's how you create depth, by layering lighter colors on top of darker colors. So basically at this point, I just have to move around the piece and see what I'm missing. You know, I just kind of suggested where the bird foot is. And of course, everybody has heard me say bird feet are my least favorite thing to paint. But yeah, so I've got to get the little highlights in this little bird foot. And so I kind of just, again, using the pointed round, just using basically a very, very light gray, almost solid titanium white onto this little bird foot, and just kind of creating some of the detail. I still have to put his little nails in, but you get the idea. We're getting that little bird foot in. And I will be doing a little shadowing around it, and you'll see. I'll just be using a watered down version to create the light shadow that's underneath the bird. So I'll take a combination of the ultramarine blue and raw umber with a lot of water and just kind of make almost like a glaze. It's not really a glaze, but it kind of is a glaze, but it's just a wash of color to create a shadow underneath. And you'll see that happening here in just a minute. Just kind of hitting the last little bit of detail here, kind of looking it over, seeing if there's anything else I can add. And again, I'm just putting a little bit of the, delineation of the primary wing feathers on those birds. And yeah, I'm kind of getting ready to wrap it up. This is the fun stuff, folks. I really do enjoy doing these little birds, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. And if you did, consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And know that I also have a YouTube membership program as well as a Patreon, so check me out there as well. And so just do a little bit lighter detail on top of that little top knot on that bird, and bam, I think we're about done. And I hope you enjoyed today's video. didn't take too long. I think it took me probably less than an hour, probably about 46 minutes to actually paint this little bird. With acrylic paint, with water-based paint, it dries very quickly, which is probably my biggest complaint about working with acrylics, in that it dries so quickly. You really have very little working time. But because of this type of job, I needed to use acrylic paint, and my client actually has some problems with chemicals. And actually, the whole design of this house is all based around her chemical sensitivity. So acrylic paint really is the best medium for this particular job, not only because of the VOCs and off-gassing, if you will, but also because it is they dry out quickly enough to where I can move on to the next piece, and I can stack color a little bit easier. And you can see in this one, I did have to stack, meaning I am layering color on top of color on top of color, so I can actually move around the painting so that I can get the drier area of the painting to load more color. So if that makes sense. But anyway, obviously here's the little finished piece of the bird, and you can see it there. And it was fun. It was a fun little bird to do, and I will be doing more birds and more little critters. So stay tuned. So thanks so much for watching. And if you are one of my subscribers, again, thank you so much for being there. And consider my membership. I have a YouTube membership and also have a Patreon. So go ahead and check me out over there as well. So from Kingsport, Tennessee, I want to say thank you for joining me, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.